as we have discussed before, when we have a large set of data, so when we have lots and lots and lots of data values, it becomes easier and more useful if we put them into groups. And once we put them into groups, then graphing it, putting it into a table, finding the frequencies, it becomes much easier and it's more useful. So what we're going to look at today is specifically group data and how we're going to use the group data to create a frequency table and then create a frequency graph, which is the histogram. And then from the histogram, how can we calculate the mean? Now, as we have learned before, the method to find mean is, how do we find mean? I'm pretty sure that we all remember. The way to find mean is sum of all the values, all the data values, if you add them all up, divide by the number of values. So when we have a large set of data and we are grouping them, we are putting them into groups. So what that means is that if we have data, say, let's say, for example, we have test marks of everyone in our class. We did a little mini test and the test was out of 50 and the test results that we all got ranged from a minimum value of 20 right up to 49. And say we are doing that for all the Year 9 classes. So there's about close to 100 or so Year 9 students. So imagine writing all the marks, like all the individual marks, adding up to like all the individual marks, which are up to 100 for 100 or so kids. That'll take us forever. That'll also create or give us more chances to make mistakes. So therefore, we're going to learn a system where we are going to put them into groups. Now, we're going to come to that a little bit later. That is the formula that we need to use to find the mean for group data. To do that, there's a different system involved, and that's what we're going to go through in this example. So let's have a look at this example. That's the data. The data below shows the number of hamburgers sold each hour by a 24-hour fast food store during a 50-hour period. So that is the number of burgers sold in a 24-hour period. Oh no, during a 50-hour period. There you go. So, and these are the questions that follow. So we'll come to the questions again a little bit later. First, let's have a look at, for all of this data, if we count as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 10 times 5, 50. That tells us the 50-hour period. Okay, so if you have a look, it's not in any kind of order. The data values are not in ascending or descending order. It's kind of all over the place, which means that in the first hour, maybe 1 burger was sold, then 10 burgers, then 18, then 14, and so forth. So what we're going to do is have a look at what is the minimum. What's the minimum number, or what is the minimum amount of burgers sold, and what's the maximum amount of burgers sold. So if you have a look, the minimum amount is 0 and the maximum amount is 24. So the first things that we're going to need to notice is what the minimum and maximum is. We can maybe sort them in order as well, but we don't have to. If we notice what the minimum and maximum is, it'll help us to decide that when we do our frequency table, what is the minimum value that we should start off with. Okay, so let's do an example together. So let's do this example, the next example together, which is that one. Okay, so the data below shows the marks out of 100 on the science exam for 60 Year 9 students. So these are the marks. All of these are the marks that 60 Year 9 students got. So that means if you count all of them, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20 by 3, 60. So the 60 data set. The total, the 60 data values, so the total is 60. Okay, so let's see. What is the minimum amount? Let's start with that. What's the minimum amount? Let's have a look. Minimum value is 50. And the maximum value is, if you keep going, there's a 96 there. Let's see if there's anything more than 96. The maximum is 96. So the first thing that you have to do is decide on a class interval. So what that means is that how many groups are you going to have? So if you have a look, minimum is 50, maximum is 96. You can do anything. You can put them into groups of 4, groups of 5, groups of 10, whatever. But it's wiser and it's easier. It's more easier for you if you choose a class interval which is easier to manage. So I'm going to choose a class interval of 10. Class interval of 10 means that there are 10 data values in that class interval. In the group. So what that means is that if we start at 50, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 values. So the way we write this is we write 50 dash, either like that, or we can write it as 50 to 59, or we can also write that as 50 to less than 60. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so once we get that, what we do is we create a table. So let me just... So once we do that, let's create a table. Let's create our frequency table. Now this is called a frequency table. So the first thing we do is we create a frequency table. So that's point 1. And what we do, in the first column, we have our class intervals. We have a class interval. Okay, the second column, we have our frequency, also given by small f. Okay, now the third column is something that we say x. Now I'll tell you what x stands for. So basically there's a method to find x is the midpoint of your class interval. So what that means that if you have a class interval from 0 to 5, so there's 5 of them, halfway would be your x would be equal to 2.5. So what that means is our first class interval is 50 to less than 60. Okay, now, so if we want to find whatever, and I'm just going to do the class intervals first, so we'll do that first. So then the next one then starts at 60 to less than 70. Then we have 70 to less than 80. We have 80 to less than 90, and then 90 to less than 100. So I just extend that. And then we'll have another column at the end, and I'll explain to you in a while why we have that other column as well. Okay. Now, so to find the midpoint of 50 to less than 60 is for the first class interval. What we do is we add, and I'm going to show you that. So 50 plus 60, you take the smaller the smaller limit and the larger limit, add them together, divide by 2, and we get 55. So over here, so that means halfway is 55. Halfway between 60 and 70 is 65. Halfway between 70 and 80, 75. Halfway between 80 and 90 is 85, and this is 95. Okay, now let's have a look. How many values are between 50 to less than 60? And as we go, if we keep crossing it off, we can be sure that we've got the correct data. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep going. 6, 7, 8. So there's 8. Therefore, frequency over there is 8. Likewise, we do the rest. So if we complete the table and we count from the data above, from over here, check how many values are in those class intervals. If you add all of them up, that should total 60, because we have 60 year 9 students, as it says over here, 60 year 9 students. And the way we get these values is, the way this is achieved is fx. Fx means f times x. So what we have done to get 440 is 8 multiplied by 55. And that gave us, not on the same side, same line, that gave us 440. Likewise for the second one, it was 14 times 65. So 14 times 65, that was the second one, which was 910, and so forth. So when you have to do a frequency table, that is the complete frequency table, where you have your class interval, you have the frequency for each of the values in the class interval, you take the midpoint, then you find the fx, and the final, this bottom row gives us the total. This is the total of the frequency, so that should match the number of students, and that is the total of your fx. That means if you add up the frequency of all of these values, what does that come up to? Okay, so now we go. Remember how I said that I'll come back to this formula over here? Now, that is the formula we use to find the mean. So the formula was to find the mean. So we're trying to find what is the mean mark for this year 9 students. Okay, so the formula was mean is equal to the sum of fx divided by the sum of the frequency, which means you get all of this, 440, 910, 675, 2125, and so forth. And the way we got that was 8 times 55 plus 14 times 65 plus. And if you multiply all of that and add them up, as we look at the table up here, it gives us a total of 4530. That divided by 60. And if you calculate that, that gives us a value of 75.5. So what that means is that the average mark for year 9 students was 75.5. The next thing would be to draw the frequency graph, and that should match to your table. So if you have a look in the interval of 50 to 60, a frequency of 8. So the way we do that, be mindful that we start drawing at 50. So we draw the bar from 50 to 60. It went up to 8. Your bar goes up to 8, and you draw the bar. The next one, if you have a look, is 14 from 60 to 70. So joins from 60 to 70, it's up to 14, which is just over there, somewhere there. So remember, it's joined. It tells us that tells us that it's continuous data, and you draw the bar and you keep going for the next one. If you have a look, you can see that it's negative